You're watching FiOS 1 News. It's 7 o'clock.
Good evening and welcome to our special town hall, School Safety and Security After Parkland. I'm Richard French, and we are at Plainedge High School tonight in Massapequa, Long Island. Now, the shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School was 2 months ago. But since then, school safety and gun control, they've become among the most talked about issues in this country. But it's not just all talk. The student-led movement, it has captivated this country, and it all culminated in that March for Our Lives last month, where hundreds of thousands of people across this country took to the streets to demonstrate. And there is a lot to protest. Now, this year alone, we have seen 18 school shootings. That means we have one just about every week. And so far, there are still far more questions than there are answers. Lawmakers in Washington, they've made little, if any, real progress dealing with the issues. That, despite the fact that there is overwhelming majorities in this country that want to see something done. Recent polls, they show 2/3 of the public, they asked to have stricter gun laws, and a whopping 97%, they want universal background checks. Now, when's the last time 97% of Americans agreed on anything? Now, that brings us to tonight. We wanted to put politics to the side and put a human face in this situation. Now, over the next hour, we will be talking to educators, law enforcement, mental health. We're going to start with the challenges of protecting a school, how to deal with an active shooter, how to coordinate between the school and the police, and more. And let me introduce our first panel. I'm joined by Plainedge School District Superintendent Dr. Ed Salina, Nassau County Police Commissioner Patrick Ryder, and Lee Mandel, President and CEO of Intralogic Solutions. That's the security company which installed Plainedge's state-of-the-art security system, which included electronic mapping, one-button lockdown, direct connection to police, and more. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Ed, I want to start with you, and I want to go back to February 14th, because I'm sure the audience here and at home, we probably remember where we were when we saw the video come on the afternoon, where kids in that Parkland High School were planning to leave for the day, and then tragedy struck. Sure. Like many, you're a parent, but also you're a superintendent, you got 5 schools. What was going through your mind when you saw that?
So the first thing I thought about was, are we doing enough here in Plainedge? What can we do better? We spent a lot of time and a lot of energy and the public's money in order to install a number of different technological advances that will help us give us those seconds that are necessary in the event of a tragedy. Basically was, obviously, people were misled by the pulling of the fire alarm, and we've been trained since we've been in kindergarten that when there's a fire alarm that's pulled, people will exit the building. And I wondered to myself, what could we do better, or what should we be thinking about and talking about in order to improve what's going on in schools today? And to prepare for something like a fire alarm being pulled, have we really talked about it enough? Have we worked with the professionals to say, is there anything that we could be doing differently or better? And how would we avoid a tragedy like this happening here, right here in Massapequa, New York?
Especially, that's supposed to be the safest city in America down in Parkland. You can do more, but can you do everything to stop it? I mean...
I believe that you can always do more. What we need to do, though, is we need to drill. We need to speak with law enforcement to find out what their recommendations are. We need to have outstanding relationships with them. And what we're really looking for is that I think the practice is most important. We need to continue to have these drills. According to New York State Education Department, there are 4 active shooter drills a year. We do more than 4. We do approximately 8 to 12 here. We use a one-button lockdown system, which is very unique to our schools here in Plainedge. There's been a lot of interest expressed by other schools throughout Nassau County, Suffolk County, and the United States that have come to visit us to talk about the one-button lockdown. How do we expedite a lockdown, and how do we get it done in under a minute?
Speaking of timing and connection to law enforcement, Commissioner, what should the public's expectation be for response time and, obviously, in a discussion that came out of Parkland, direct engagement? When law enforcement comes on the scene, how long should it take? And when they...
The entire county, we're about 456 square miles. Then there's 18 villages and 2 city police departments that we work hand in hand with every single day. And many of the school districts in Nassau County cross into those villages. Our response time on emergency calls is 3 to 5 minutes. That means if there's a baby choking, a house fire, or if there's a shooting, it's closer to 3 minutes. And I think since Columbine, 75% of shootings are over in 5 minutes. 52% of those 75% are over in 2 minutes. If my response time is 3 to 5 minutes, and those shootings are over on average in 2 minutes, it's about closing the gap on the time. It's about getting there quicker, mitigating the damage. We prepare for the worst, and we hope and pray for the best. And as Dr. Selena just said, the training over and over, that is muscle memory, getting that exercise. But the most important thing that we have to remember, it's the parents' response. It's social media. We jump on that and we start texting everybody, wanting to speak to our children. We don't know where to go. And without the proper planning, and most schools do it with parents, is where do they go? Where are you going to go to meet with the security force or the school personnel to meet with your child? Also, because if you run to that front door, you become part of the problem, not the solution. So it's very important, is key. Response time is key, but training is probably the most important part of it, that we all know what we do when, God forbid, that act does happen.
When the police show up, do they run right in the door or do they wait?
So we learn from Columbine, we learn from all our mistakes, that we don't wait in Nassau County. We don't wait for a supervisor in Nassau County. The first 5 cops grab, and they'll be here within 3 minutes. Those first 5 cops form a diamond formation, and they go. And their job, and parents may not like to hear this, is to step over everybody that's in that aisle already and get to the shooter. Stop the threat. Because, again, it's about mitigating the damage at that point, stopping the shooter, and making sure that he can't harm anybody else. So we go in a diamond formation, we work our way to the threat, stop the threat, and then we come back and handle our aided.
Lee, you were called down to Parkland after this tragedy to help give both counsel and advice as to where they go from here in terms of protecting it. Before we get into what the suggestions were, put a human face in this. What was it like there in the aftermath?
It was rough. You know, I was called to Parkland a couple of days after the shooting. I thought I was meeting with a few people, community members, some staff. Ended up being all the parents and the entire community in the room. And I take what I do extremely seriously. But after you see those parents talking about how they lost their children and the stories, it really puts a face to it, and it really makes you think differently about everything you do. And I think just like the commissioner said, just like the superintendent said, you know, it's not just about technology, it's a multi-pronged approach, and it's really 4 processes we always talk about. It's hardening the infrastructure, of course, the intelligence, the social media, knowing what's going on around the district. What's the response going to be like the commissioner said, and then, like Dr. Selena said, the training. So it's a multi-pronged approach. And when we spoke to the parents at Parkland, one of the things we really saw is that we're doing a great job here in New York. Nassau County, Suffolk County, we're doing an incredible, incredible job. And when you spend time in districts around and you separate yourself from being here in New York, you really see how great of a job we're doing here. It's incredible.
Superintendent, talk about the presence. What does your district have in terms of on-the-ground presence before there's ever any tragedy, and what's changed, if anything, since Parkland?
Okay. So we have implemented a one-button lockdown system for active shooter scenarios in order to prepare for anything that might come our way that's remotely related to what you've seen happen down in Parkland. What happens during a one-button lockdown? So basically it secures all the exterior doors. No one can enter inside. It sounds in a comfortable voice of the principal, basically, that we're moving into a lockdown to secure the school itself. It notifies the police first to let them know that we've moved into a lockdown, requesting a response from the Nassau County Police Department. It texts parents and lets them know that we are moving into lockdown. Please do not come to the schools. We need to keep the pathways clear so that our first responders can get inside. And as the commissioner said, basically look and terminate any type of danger that exists.
Do you have guards on campus?
We have some security. We are actually moving since Parkland. We are hiring off-duty law enforcement that will begin in our schools. We're also installing new vestibules. We sprang to action as soon as this happened and we thought to ourselves, what could we do better? And we are introducing vestibules inside of all the entranceways. And if you're not familiar with the vestibule, it's basically a place that's a secure area. We move in. We'll be moving to a visitor management system here, which will basically scan licenses for a sex offender criminal database. And it will let us know who's coming in our schools at all times. We have increased our security force for next year. Our budget's gone up in that area quite a bit in order to hire these trained professionals that are looking to continue their work and take what they've learned inside of the field over the past 25 years, now that they're retired and they're coming to work for us. So we're excited about that.
Commissioner, would you like to see teachers have guns?
So that's not a decision for me to make. That's a decision for the school districts and the individuals to make. We know and we have seen that when you put more guns in a situation and the professionals show up, that's where we have issues. We have crossfire situation and innocent people get shot. Again, it's not for me to make that decision. Mine is to whatever that, and there's 56 school districts in this county. Whatever district decides to take on whatever resource they are, we need to adapt to it.
Well, let me put him on the spot then, because it's his decision. Do you want to see teachers, lunch ladies, gym teachers? There's been some calls that the more guns, the more you'd have a more immediate response.
Yeah, I believe that law enforcement professionals are the people that should be holding the weapons at this point in time. But the conversation's not over. I told you before when we started this conversation, this is an ongoing conversation. I need to see what, obviously, law enforcement brings to us, what studies bring forward. But Plainedge is prepared to go either way. As we see what happens in society today in the United States and what happens with gun control laws, et cetera, in specific active shooter scenarios, we'll be watching very closely. And we're bringing those people that are licensed professionals already. While they're not carrying their weapons, these people are fully prepared to carry weapons if necessary. So as we go through this, should we make the decision, and the decision is not solely mine, this is a Board of Education decision which will be discussed, or elected officials of the community itself. We haven't closed the door to that conversation. That conversation's ongoing at this point in time.
Lee, by all accounts, in the research for this district's doing it right. But every school's got so many doors and so many points of entry. I got to imagine that's one of the biggest challenges districts have to deal with, right?
I think it's a challenge, obviously. We have to secure our perimeter first. We don't want to let someone in the building who shouldn't be in the building. We want to identify, like Dr. Salinas said, who's in the building. So I think that's a big portion of it. Schools here in Nassau and Suffolk County that we work with are doing an incredible job. They're some of the most proactive schools in the country. We have probably the most proactive police department in the country, utilizing technology, utilizing social media tools to really get ahead of this. And I think the biggest thing, like the commissioner said, is the speed. It's closing that gap. It's the second save lives concept. And if we can save 5 seconds on what the school district does when locking down their building, 10 seconds, that could potentially save a life. The quicker we can get the first responders there, the better.
All right. Gentlemen, thank you very much. And we'll be talking with some of you later in the program. When we come back, we're going to talk about mental health, the subject we just touched on, Army teachers, and much more. Please stay with us.
Come to Acura of Huntington today and experience for yourself why style has never felt so good. Lease the new 2018 Acura TLX for just $299 a month. So stop dreaming and start driving today at Acura of Huntington.
Critics are raving. I, Tonya is an insane true story and now nominated for 3 Academy Awards.
The best of them.
Including Best Actress, Margot Robbie.
Skating is my whole life. What did you do?
And Best Supporting Actress, Allison Janney.
I made you a champion.
He cursed me.
Rolling Stone calls it one of the year's more unruly Oscar contenders.
What you all came for, folks.
I, Tonya.
Rent or own this movie today with Fios On Demand.
You would love to remodel your bathroom, but are worried about the disruption, cost, or hassles that are going to come with attempting to do it yourself. Remodeling your home doesn't need to be stressful. Allure Home Improvements has completed over 15,000 bathroom remodels, so you can be confident that your remodel will be done right with as little disruption as possible. You could have your new bathroom in as little as 5 days. Let us show you how simple we can make bathroom remodeling. Call now to schedule a free design consultation and see how we go to extremes to build your dreams.
For the best in high school lacrosse coverage in Long Island, tune in to FiOS 1 News. All season long, we'll bring you the best matchups and find out which team will make 2018 a championship season. Catch all the exciting action of boys and girls high school lacrosse on FiOS 1 News Long Island. This week, tune in Wednesday at 8 p.m. to watch Syosset take on Long Beach. And Friday at 7:30 p.m., Lynbrook challenges Bethpage. Only on FiOS 1 News on channels 501 and 1, only on Verizon FiOS TV.
Come to Acura of Huntington today and experience for yourself why style has never felt so good. Lease the new 2018 Acura RDX for just $299 a month. So stop dreaming and start driving today at Acura of Huntington.
And welcome back to our special town hall, School Safety and Security After Parkland. I'm Richard French, and tonight we join you from Plainedge High School. Now, perhaps the most controversial issue since Parkland is whether to arm teachers and other school employees. Another issue that's getting a lot of attention, that is of mental health. How do we deal with students who are troubled and perhaps even dangerous, and how do we keep guns out of their hands? And joining us now is our next panel, Plainedge High School Principal Robert Amster, District Psychologist Dr. Nadine Castoro, and President of the Plainedge Federation of Teachers and also high school science teacher himself, Perry Fuchs. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for having us.
Principal, I take you back to that awful day in February. What's kept you up at night since that day?
I'm a father of three children, 17, 19, and 21. My first thoughts, and it was actually my son, my oldest guy, who brought it to my attention, and there was a part of me that said, oh no, not again. And then there was the bulk of me which dealt with it with empathy. My kids go to school every day, whether it's high school or college, and I go to school every day, and the expectation is that I will come home. And so the idea that 17 individuals, mostly children and an adult mixed in, went to school that day as they would any other day and as I do every day, and didn't come home, that was a bit terrifying.
Doctors, there's been so much made, rightfully so, about the issues of mental health, but it would seem that it's so much to approach almost simultaneously. There is the issue of, do you look out for the socially isolated kids? Do you look out for kids that are being bullied either physically or online? Or what about the kids who there's an external issue, whether there's a romantic problem going bad or a physical altercation that a gun gets involved in bringing to the school? If you have to prioritize these things, where do you start?
It's very difficult, because when you're looking for risk factors in children that have difficulties in school or difficulties in creating these type of situations, we're now saying that there's one factor that's playing a role, and that's really not the truth. But we can all say that there's been an instance in our lives that we've been bullied, and we can hold, a situation that we've had accountable to that. But I'm going to say that it's hard to prioritize mental health-wise which students you do deal with. You need to address the ones that the teachers feel are the ones that are troublesome in their classroom. Each one of them needs their individualized attention. I think more so the biggest concern we have is that these social isolates are now lending to social media a little bit more and becoming empowered behind the screen. They're now having another community that they can voice their concerns to, and their social isolation is now becoming empowered by behind the screen, and now becoming identified with other students that are similar to them across the nation. And I think that that's giving a little bit more power to those students that were socially isolated. The problem with mental health that we have is that We as school psychologists can only do so much within the school. Our role is really there to identify students who have special needs in relation to the school population. Our role is not there to provide treatment for mental health concerns. We're outreach professionals. We are there to try to streamline the information, outreach and act as a liaison to the community members. And it's a very difficult job because often you're dealing with parents that don't want to hear the concerns that are being presented or are reluctant to hear what is going on, and they don't want their own child to be ostracized or stigmatized, so themselves are a little reluctant to get or seek mental health counseling.
Perry, take us into the faculty lounge when you don't have him around, you don't have the parents there or the kids.
Right.
Is too much being asked of teachers today where they're asked to be the ones identifying risk factors? They're educating, obviously, but at the same time, there's conversations we'll talk about in a second about maybe they should be the first responders. You studied to teach and to educate, and it seems there's a lot more being put on teachers when maybe some other people should be speaking up before the warning signs maybe enter homeroom.
We ask a lot of our teachers today. We're asked to design and implement new curriculum on a yearly basis, study pedagogy, act as a mentor, act as a coach, act as a guidance counselor within the classroom. And most of the teachers that I talk to are very worried about the time when they'll be asked to carry a firearm in the classroom. We did not become educators to run the risk of potentially harming students. We nurture students, we educate students, we love students, we guide them towards proper decisions. I think that asking us to carry a firearm within the classroom and within the school itself is a very dangerous proposition. Even in the instance where the police center, these are highly trained professionals that spend months, if not years, preparing for situations. When are we going to find the time to provide the teachers with such training and expect that they'll be able to perform at the same level as, say, a SWAT officer?
Well, Perry went there a little earlier than I intended, but I go to you. You're the one who has to answer the phone calls from the parents and also on both sides of the issue, I'm sure. Would your school be safer if you had more guns? And if yes, who do you want carrying them?
I work at the pleasure of the community and the superintendent and the board. My personal opinion is two or threefold. No, I don't think the school would be safer. There are 130,000 schools in the country. We all have protocols through which we attempt to keep our schools safe. I don't think opening the door, even if it's one gun per teacher, we're adding 130,000 guns to schools where they weren't there before. Also, I don't claim to know how this works. The commissioner would know much better than I would. If a gun is easily accessible in an emergency situation, then my fear is it's accessible to others throughout the day. And if it's not accessible in an emergency situation, then there's no point in having it. Lastly was what the commissioner mentioned in the last panel, the idea that an adult with a gun becomes a nuisance at best and a target at worst.
Doctor, if you could identify one segment of the population, whether it's fellow kids, whether it's parents, or whomever, that would make your job and their jobs easier in identifying a possible risk or a troubled kid that needs help before it's too late, who would you like help for that you may not be getting it as broadly as you'd like?
I do believe that the school does an adequate and excellent job in identifying students that do have concerns. The problem that we are up against very often in schools, and I think I mentioned this prior, is that oftentimes parents and the community members are reluctant to hear the concerns that we're saying. Oftentimes children who suffer from mental illness tend to come from a genetic background where their family members suffer some kind of genetic mental illness as well. Usually untreated, medication not taken, and can lead to more difficulty getting the child support on the outside. again, it's very difficult to work in a school where our day ends at 3 or 4 o'clock, and we can outreach with the proper authorities, but consent is needed to provide mental health counseling. And there is a lot of students, and we see this very frequently in the schools, that are not diagnosed, or if they are being treated, they're treated by the primary physician, which really is not a trained medical health professional. They should really be getting that care from a trained psychiatrist or a trained psychologist on the outside. And we do have plenty of community opportunities for them that we do communicate with, but it is the parents that we feel we need, or the community members, not all. There's certainly a large proportion of parents that are supportive. But when you are faced with children that do have mental illness, it is hard to digest. And I understand that, being a parent myself. But it's a realization that we need to understand, accept, and treat appropriately and in the right way in order to kind of handle these at-risk factors.
Are fellow students more likely today than maybe my generation to come forward and say, this kid's got a problem, this kid's getting hassled, I really think you ought to sit down and talk to this child? Do they come forward more?
Yes, much more frequently. And also social media plays a huge role with these, again, Snapchat and the Facebooks and, the other avenues that these children have. They come in and they share it with us. So we now have proof, we now have identification, we have the actual screenshots of what the students are saying back and forth. It's not to discount that the child who's being victimized or feels the need to kind of use social media as an outlet to communicate is not having difficulties themselves. But that's where the mental illness component comes in, is that they shouldn't be using social media as a method to communicate their concerns and cope. Coping mechanisms are not as strong as they used to be, and we don't have those mechanisms available to, support our students anymore.
Perry, in the last segment, the superintendent talked about that you do active shooter drills and training. Share with the audience a little bit what those are. And also, I've heard debates as to they're terrific preventative measures or practice measures, so God forbid it happens, you know what to do. And others is it heightens and gets even more anxiety into a room that you don't need anymore.
So a lockdown drill, when the one-button lockdown is activated, Mr. Amster's voice comes over the loudspeaker. We are instructed to look into the hallways, see if there are any students out that we could pull into our classrooms immediately, lock the door, and close the lights, and move into the corner to remain out of view until the lockdown is over. I believe the intention is to deter an active shooter who would probably go toward the line of least resistance. So if they come by a classroom and they see that the lights are off, they don't see anybody in there, and the door is locked, they're more likely to go by that classroom. I believe that most teachers and students at this point, because we've drilled so much here in Plainedge, are comfortable with the idea of a lockdown. I do remember that after the Parkland shooting occurred, and we did our first lockdown, right after that shooting, it was a pretty somber moment inside that classroom, and where kids had been more jovial in the past during that, they took it more seriously. But I would say that teachers and students in Plainedge High School feel safe. We feel safe and secure. We're happy with the changes in security that we see the Board of Ed is making, and I feel safe to come to work every day.
Robert, you got a lot of pressures as a principal, and especially this time of year, kids going to colleges, you're worrying about how they're doing on all the state assessments and everything else. How much time do you spend on safety? And would you have imagined that when you got an education?
No. I mean, there were not, classes or even lessons on how to deal with this aspect of school security. There's a lot of school security is on-the-job training, and unfortunately, I think the seismic shift occurred back in 1999, and since then, every incident we've had, we've been able to learn a little bit from and adapt. And unfortunately, when I say that, it sounds glib, but I don't. I certainly don't mean it that way. There have been many lives lost. From those lives lost, we've hopefully learned lessons. So that I think that a school administrator probably enters the field, unless they have a background in policing. They probably enter the field with little to no experience, and most of the training is on the job. I spend a considerable amount of time on on safety and security, though, as Dr. Castoro suggested, a lot of that time that I spend on safety and security is spent dealing with students in need. And so that it's about relationships, and as we get to know our students and we recognize patterns and changes in patterns and shifts within those changes, we can identify students in need as they go from being in pain them to others. So a lot of my job and a lot of the time spent on safety and security is spent in dealing with individual students who we can still help.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, when we come back, we're going to hear from the students. What do they want and what do they think, given this unfortunate reality that keeps happening over and over again? How do they want to be kept safe? Stay with us.
Drive away in a new Audi this month from Audi of Huntington and get luxury built in. Lease the new 2018 Audi A4 for just $399 a month. Your dream car is closer than you think at Audi of Huntington.
Hey, Long Island, more gaming and excitement is right next door at Resorts World Casino in Queens. So come on, let's check it out. We've got more slots than anyone, more electronic tables than anyone, blackjack, 3-card poker, roulette, 3 floors, over 6,000 games, more than anyone. More games, more excitement. We've got more right next door. Resorts World Casino in Queens. Come play, dine, and unwind.
Wind Caterers, Route 25A, Wading River.
When news happens during your day, Verizon Fios One Long Island is with you. In the morning, our award-winning news team lets you know what happened while you slept.
More information on that breaking story.
Our meteorologists show you what it's like outside with our exclusive Weather on the Ones.
Coastal flood advisories.
And our traffic reports keep you on time. Our reporters are keeping you up to date all day long, while weather forecasts continue every 10 minutes. Local news, weather, traffic, and high school sports only on channels 501 and 1, only on Verizon Fios TV.
Drive away in a new Audi this month from Audi of Huntington and get luxury built in. Lease the new 2018 Audi Q3 for just $349 a month. Your dream car is closer than you think at Audi of Huntington.
Welcome back to our special town hall, School Safety and Security After Parkland. I'm Richard French, and tonight we join you from Plainedge High School. Now, at the end of the day, it is about the students. How do we get them the best education, prepare them for life after school, and most importantly, how do we keep them safe? Now, for that, we're going to speak with 3 12th graders here, Jessica Barbieri, Siobhan Flanagan, and Matthew Gustafson, or as he says, call him Matt. All right, guys, same question to all of you, and in many ways, a year before you were born probably, we had Columbine. And I've done the math, but this year alone, we've had 18 shootings at schools. Obviously, Parkland we've talked about. Has this become a new normal for you? You're the first generation that has grown up with this, or does it give you still a lot of anxiety, the issue of safety in schools? And I'll start with you.
It's not something that you want to get used to, but unfortunately, it's not surprising nowadays when you see that there's an active shooting situation in a school. We're not even halfway through the year and there's already been over a dozen, and it's in the back of your mind when you come to school every day.
You agree, Siobhan?
I do. Sadly, it is an ongoing event here. We've seen it so many times. We do have to take all measures and take it seriously.
But are you scared about it? Does it give you anxiety? Your classmates, or do they say, where's this? This time it happened in Florida. Last time it was Arkansas or South Carolina, or pick your date line. Is it something you guys talk about or worried about?
It is something we talk about, and of course we do have to take it seriously. We would never think it would happen here, but of course it's very possible.
Matt?
Right, and of course, there is some anxiety involved, even though we see it so often. You know, you say to yourself, you say to your friends, you know, this could be us. So it's, you know, after you see the shooting, like the Parkland shooting, you see everyone in the hallways, everyone's heads are kind of down, you know, when's, like, it's a terrible attitude, but it's when's the next one going to happen? Well, are we going to be in danger? So it's very unfortunate that it's become the new norm, and of course, we're still worried about it.
You know, guys, I went and I covered the March for Our Lives rally down in D.C. And obviously there were a lot of rallies, including on Long Island, in New York City, throughout both our region and our country. And I'm a cynic, having done this news thing for a long time. I've never seen anything like that, the outpouring. But there's been some criticism of the kids, saying, adults saying, who is some teenager to tell me what I should think about guns or whatever the subject should be? Just do your homework, you know, take your SATs, don't lecture me. And some have said even worse. What's your reaction about your role? And really, it's changed the dynamic in the conversation here. For the first time, kids have been having this debate, not politicians or someone else. What do you see as your generation's role in this conversation?
Well, considering politicians really haven't been taking this debate, we're the only ones left that will. So I think it is up to the young people to take action, considering it is us going to schools every day. And also, history repeats itself. If we saw back in the 70s, it was young people leading the movement against the war, and now it's us protecting ourselves. So I think just because we're young doesn't mean we should be dismissed. If anything, we should be taken more seriously because we're the ones in this situation. We're the ones coming to school every day, of course, along with adults, but it's mostly students. And we want to be protected just as much as everyone else.
Matt, you've heard some of the stuff. I mean, certainly some of the Parkland kids individually have been targeted on network TV and otherwise. Any second thoughts? I mean, you guys got a lot going on here. You're heading out to college next year in all likelihood. You've got prom in a month or so. Is this something you really guys want to take on your plate here as well?
In my opinion, I can't speak for the entire youth, but for me, and I think for many members of my school, yes, this is very important to us. And you may see a lot of adults, you know, saying things like, they're not going to have an impact. Who are they to tell me what to do? But I think it's really important to us because it could be us. It could be, we are the ones directly affected, our acquaintances, our peers, our friends. So it definitely affects us more. It's more important to us. And even if we are going to college, you know, we are the future of America. So we want our voices to be heard. We want to have an impact.
Siobhan, every tragedy is different. Every perpetrator doesn't have the same biography. Guns always seem to be involved, but it always seems to be somebody on the outskirts of the general student population, whether they're a loner or whether they've been bullied. How bad does bullying get nowadays, especially for a generation that never had to go through social media, and it didn't just end at school? Sometimes it continues throughout the night, every night here online. How bad does it get for kids?
I don't really see it as a big issue here in Plainedge personally. Of course, bullying happens everywhere, and there are real mental health issues out there, but we are taking all steps possible here. So.
You agree?
Yeah, I agree. I've never seen anything terrible online, but I think all students would agree that throughout their years in school, whether it was elementary school or high school, everyone's been isolated or bullied to some extent, but not everyone goes out and does something terrible in response to it. So I think people try to pin it on one specific issue, like, oh, it's bullying, or oh, it's the continuation of social media, being able to reach people at any time. But it's not one specific issue. It's a mixture of a lot of different issues in a different age.
Right, so to kind of piggyback off of what Siobhan and Jessica said, of course, bullying happens everywhere. Our school district, I think, from what I've seen, is pretty good in terms of, you know, not having that much bullying, being a pretty safe and welcoming community. But social media certainly doesn't help. But I see it as, I feel that everyone always seems to try and find a need to put a causation on something or a correlation. And I think at this time we can't really find one cause for school shootings. We can't really pin, it is bullying, it is cyberbullying, it is mental illness. Of course, those don't help. But I think everyone's always looking for a correlation or a causation. I don't know if we can find that right now.
I mentioned in the last segment to the doctor that, again, this may be generational, but it would have been unheard of in my age, if a kid was, that you'd go to the school and say, this kid's got some problems, or this kid has been saying X or Y. There seems to be, and I think it's a good thing, but there seems to be more of a willingness of the student body to either look out for one of their own or to alert the school to a possible situation. Is that my imagination or not?
Well, it's gotten very real with our generation with the amount of school shootings that we've seen, and no one wants their school to be next. No one wants to miss the opportunity of reporting someone that could cause harm in the future. So yes, I think people are more willing, but for unfortunate reasons.
This Friday, it is the anniversary of Columbine, and across this country in different school districts, there's going to be student walkouts. Are we going to see that at Plainedge?
Yes, you are.
Tell me why.
It's the anniversary of Columbine, and also with the recent Parkland shooting. So Plainedge students, ones that want to participate, will be walking out at 10 a.m., and it will be for 17 minutes to honor the 17 lives lost in Parkland. And this is to raise awareness for the lives lost and also to push for greater gun reform in this country.
You're going to be out there Friday?
Of course, yes, I will be. I think that, of course, there will always be some who disagree. Nobody can ever agree on everything, but I think a majority of the students in our student body will be participating. Maybe make some signs, say some things, and really just notify, notify everyone out there that, we have opinions too. We're the future. We have an idea of what we'd like to be done to protect us and make us more safe.
So in June, guys, you're going to graduate. You're going to head off to colleges, and I'm curious, does the issue then stop with you guys there? Does this next fall on college campuses, is this an issue? You guys are going to be freshmen there. You're not going to be at Plainedge. Where does this go, you guys think, once everybody breaks for summer and we start again in fall?
The issue doesn't stop once we graduate high school. Not only have there been shootings at colleges, first of all, but
you know what I'm saying. We've seen after tragedies, I mean, I covered Sandy Hook, and I thought that that would change forever. And let's be honest, a lot didn't change after Sandy Hook. Why would this time be different?
This is, people don't like to recognize this, but it's an American issue. You don't see school shootings to this extent in other countries. So this is an American issue with guns in this country. I don't think that it's just a threat to schools. It's a threat to any American citizen that who knows when your life could be taken away with a gun. So I think that any American should push our lawmakers to protect us.
You don't think this goes away, guys, in a few months? You think the American attention stays on it? I mean, it stayed on it, frankly, because of you guys. If not for that, D.C. would have moved on to something else. This has stayed front and center, unlike any other shooting I've covered, because people really between 15 and 18 and 19 have made sure it hasn't gone away. Does it have staying power, this kind of student movement?
Right. I think it does. I think, especially with the youth, I know we're going to college. Personally, I'm, of course, still going to support it. I think the youth has really decided we're laying down the law. How many more of our fellow peers are going to have to die before someone finally says something or someone finally does something? So I think, at least with the youth, this movement will continue.
All right. Guys, thank you very much. And really, thank you for all you guys have done. Good luck Friday. Okay. When we come back, we're going to take some questions from the audience, and we'll continue here. Please stay with us.
Own performance. Own technology. Own the road. In the new Audi you can't stop thinking about. From Audi of Smithtown. Lease the new 2018 Audi Q3 for just $349 a month. From Audi of Smithtown.
Ocean Stone and Fireplace will create and build a beautiful indoor or outdoor gas or wood-burning fireplace in any home. Ocean Stone and Fireplace can also turn your fireplace into an efficient heat-producing machine. Want a new look? Come to Ocean Stone and Fireplace and choose from hundreds of styles and colors limited only by your imagination. And we do it all from the design to the build. Ocean Stone, we treat your home like it's our own. Ocean Stone and Fireplace in Holtzville.
At Gallery Furniture of Medford, you get the best quality, value, and selection, and the finest of home furnishings. Whether you buy the classic styles of Broyhill, the contemporary look and feel of American Drew, or the exquisitely designed handmade heirloom quality in our Kincaid Gallery, many of our brands can be customized to your taste. Our design team can help. Shop today for 60-month interest-free financing. Yes, 60 months. Come in today and let our staff design your dream home. Gallery Furniture of Medford.
Fios One's Restaurant Hunter is tracking down the best places to eat on Long Island and taking you along for the ride.
It's so addictively good.
Each week, join Emmy Award winner Rob Petrone.
What we're interested in is eating.
As he dines with renowned chefs and celebrities.
This is so good.
Go with us in search of your neighborhood's favorite eateries. Restaurant Hunter, Thursday nights at 8 on Fios One News. Only on channels 501 and 1. Only on Verizon Fios TV.
Own performance. Own technology. Own the road. In the new Audi you can't stop thinking about. From Audi of Smithtown. Lease the new 2018 Audi Q5 for just $469 a month. From Audi of Smithtown. Your favorite sunglasses. The right shoes. A new car. Lease the sophisticated and stylish 2018 Lexus ES350 for $339 a month. Arrive fashionably only at Lexus of Smithtown.
Well, I must say I've never quite seen a house like this.
Do you believe in ghosts, Doctor? This spirit has a power we've not seen before. She would die to save us.
Watch early releases with Fios On Demand.
Just outside the walls of every house, there's a unique place. A place we've handcrafted for life's most precious moments. These moments are brought to life by only the most vibrant pavers. Nicolock's hardscape products allow your backyard to become an extension of your house. Because outside of every house, there's a place we like to call home.
FiosOneNewsLI.com. The best way to get all your hyper-local news, weather, traffic, and sports. Exclusively for Long Island. Just log on to FiosOneNewsLI.com. And you can follow us on Facebook. Just log on to Facebook.com. Follow us on Twitter at FiosOneNews_LI. FiosOneNewsLI.com. The one place for everything on our island.
Your favorite sunglasses. The right shoes. A new car. Lease the sophisticated and stylish 2018 Lexus ES350 for $339 a month. Arrive fashionably only at Lexus of Smithtown.
Well, I must say I've never quite seen a house like this.
Do you believe in ghosts, Doctor? This spirit has a power we've not seen before. She would die to save us.
Watch early releases with Fios On Demand.
And welcome back, everyone, to our special town hall final segment. So I want to get to as many questions as possible and also bring in some of your questions from the audience here as well. Let me reintroduce our panel. We're joined by Superintendent Ed Salina, also Commissioner Patrick Ryder, and they're back. And we're now joined by first grade teacher Renee Stegner. She joins us as well. Thank you all. Definitely. So first off, Ed, so I don't feel bad that I got the kids in trouble. For the walkout this Friday, what's the school's position?
Obviously, we're going to create a safe environment for our students to be able to speak their minds.
Good and to the point. Patrick, I'm curious, and you can use any timeline you want, from 5 years ago to 19 years ago, which is the Friday. How much different, and I assume better, is school safety and preparedness on the part of law enforcement for these kind of tragedies?
Well, I think we spoke earlier. We've come a long way since Columbine. That morning, I was up in North Shore Hospital. My wife had just given birth to our children. I have triplets, and they're now up in college. And I remember walking out of that recovery room and then looking up at the TV and saying, what kind of world did I just bring these children into? You have to know, as residents in this county, that we take every measure that is possible to protect your children. We keep adding and learning from each other. We open up the dialogue, as we do here with both the superintendents. We do tons of training with them and work hand in hand. We've trained over 180 principals in the last 3 weeks alone on active shooter. So it's changed. The world has changed because of social media, mental illness, a lot of different things, but you can't put one stamp on it. But I think we all have to keep one thing in mind, is that we have to keep the dialogue open and keep working towards what's most important, and that's the safety of our children.
And I gotta imagine it's personal too. I mean, a lot of your cops, they got kids going to school here.
We instituted, after Parkland, a park walk and talk. So a cop visits a school every single day. So once a day, one of my 177 cops visit 177 buildings and say hello. And they walk the school, so they're familiar with that environment. When they have to go and police it or take action, they know where the front door is. They know what the rules are here in Plainedge. They know how they're going to act. And then if we're better educated, we're better at protecting you and keeping your children safe.
Renee, we talked about one marker with the commissioner, which was Columbine 19 years ago this Friday. You're a first grade teacher. I remember, and I've had, as guests many times, parents of Sandy Hook that lost children. You're a first grade teacher. I have to imagine what happened over 5 years ago must have changed the way that you look at a classroom, your responsibilities in it, and how what a normal curriculum now you have to think about. I mean, is there even preparation for school shootings even in elementary school, I wonder?
Oh, there is. What happened in Sandy Hook was just unimaginable. And going into my classroom every day, I never could conceive that something like that could happen. We are prepared at the elementary school. We do the same lockdown drills, lockout drills. We are prepared and we practice. We have a safety committee that meets regularly to evaluate the procedures and protocols that we have in place at Schwarting and the other elementary schools. That safety committee then meets with all staff and faculty, teachers, and we take a look at how are we going to make the school as safe as possible? What are we doing? What do we see as a problem? And we problem solve together.
And in fact, I want to get to some audience questions, but one of them deals with that very subject. So we asked our audience for questions for the panel, and I'll put this out there, and whoever would like to address it. The first question is, will metal detectors be installed at Plainedge?
I'll take the question.
Yep.
Metal detectors at this point in time, any safety features being considered in Plainedge at this point in time. It's not high on our priority list right now. We're looking to put vestibules in place so that we can screen the people that are coming through our doors and know who's in and out.
How do you navigate, where's that line in terms of, I mean, I was looking at some of the possible safety procedures with Lee before this program. They have basically like bomb shelters in certain schools. Where does the line go from protecting students to not creating like a penitentiary?
Sure. Well, we're not running a prison, first of all. We're running incredible schools where we want children that are excited that will come here, develop a love of learning and reading and writing. So there needs to be a balance. And the balance that we're looking for is we're constantly looking at literature, what law enforcement and what research tells us about what makes a safe school. We'll consider anything to protect our kids here in Plainedge. It's my top priority. I think about it every single day, besides providing an outstanding educational program. I tell people your kids are going to come to school today and they're going to come home. So I will consider anything, and this board will consider anything that will help to protect our kids, but at the same time, not create a prison-like environment.
This next question, I guess, for both of you, I've heard this as well asked. Has the school district addressed protocol when it comes to students who are in the hallways when there's an active shooter situation?
Sure. There are no 100% guaranteed answers inside of an active shooter scenario. My instructions to my administration as well as the staff is you're to look in the hallways and bring in every single kid that you see. And the doors to be locked, and you're to wait for further instructions. And that's what I would like people to do.
And, Commissioner, I'm curious, from your end, what's the hardest thing to plan for when you're doing, obviously you're coordinating with the schools and the protocols. What's the thing that gives you the most amount of pause? You got, I would assume, a lot of entryways into a school, but what else is there?
It's the unknown, how the shooter acts. We trained one direction, as we spoke earlier, about pulling the fire alarm. And then in Parkland, the fire alarm got pulled and brought those children out into the hallways. So now we have to plan how we handle that. So we run through tabletop exercises all the time with our Homeland Security Office, and we come up with new ways. We try to think like the bad guy. We try to think like the shooter. And so if we can understand the way he's thinking, we can better protect it. But schools are so big, and we want to have an open campus. And you don't want to have metal detectors where your kids are going to be lined up in front of the building every day. Drop your keys here, drop your phone here. That's not the way, especially when 1/3 of our shooters come from within the school. So it's always the unknown, but the better we prepare, the better we train, the better we'll be.
Renee, this next one's for you, and you answered it in part. Our elementary schools participating in lockdown drills as well. I remember after 9/11, there was a debate as to how do you talk to children about this? How do you shield them from images? How do you talk about a horrible event here that makes them grow up too fast? But as first graders, how do you figure out how much they've either already heard and also you need to drill and protect? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, that's never really easy because you don't know the conversations that are going on in their homes and what students have parents or aunts and uncles that are firefighters or police officers. We are very careful as to be appropriate with the children, as not to scare them. If they come forth with information that they have heard at home, that they are upset about, that they are worried about, then we can address that student and we can kind of make them feel safe.
This question, Ed, I think more for you. What are plans to provide resources for parents and students to help them transition through all the new changes in Plainedge? And I'm sure they'll even have more for the fall.
Sure. Well, there was a letter that was developed that was sent out that basically laid out plans that will be implemented here in Plainedge over the next 6 to 12 months. And that involved the installation of vestibules, parents being notified that basically you'll need appropriate legal ID when you enter inside of our buildings moving forward. We will be looking at your ID. We will be scanning it against the database. We're going to be looking for initiation of point-to-point. So basically if someone comes into the building and is going to guidance, my expectation is that guidance is expecting them and they get there in a timely fashion. We are going to change the way we're doing business here in Plainedge. But at the same time, like I said before, there's nothing that's out of the question as far as exploring what the possibilities might be as far as how we safeguard our students and our staff. And our parents are very, very supportive. They just want to know, what are we doing in order to make our schools the safest in the United States?
It's openly, to get the questions, to get the challenges, to get the solutions out on the table. So you've got a good superintendent here. Thank you all very much. And with that, we're going to wrap things up here from Plainedge. Thank you all for tuning in at home. Thank you to the audience for attending, and thank you to everybody involved. We'll see you.